The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Welcome back to another great episode of our Best Practices webinar series with 7Signal. If you could, please let us know where you're logging in from. I see a lot of you have actually logged in early. So let us know if you're working from home today, if you're in the office. I'm actually working from my apartment in Cleveland, and we are joined by our special guest, Keith Parsons, today. How are you, Keith?
Doing great.
Awesome. Thanks for having. We're really happy to have you on here. We're also joined by Jim Vada again. How are you today, Jim?
Great. Yep. Good to be here. I'm working from home just north of Cincinnati.
Awesome. Well, I see a few of you dropping in where you're joining from. I see Mike joining us from, let's see here, Pittsburgh. We also have a Mike from Vancouver. Let's see, we have Liam joining us from Dublin, Ireland. Wow, thank you, Liam, for joining us today. And we have Lewis joining us from home in New Jersey. Germund joining us from Norway. Welcome back, Germund. Happy to have you. All right, if you'd like to, please let us know. Continue to keep dropping in the chat where you're joining us from, and we will go ahead and get started. So we are 7Signal, the leader in wireless experience monitoring, and we will go a little bit more into depth as to what that means and what our mission is as 7Signal. As I said, we are joined by special guest Keith Parsons today. Welcome, Keith, CWNE number 3, and of course, Jim Vada, CWNE number 183. Welcome to the first webinar of 2021. Really excited to kick off the year with this topic. We've gotten a lot of great feedback for this. We're going to dive into Grudge Match, Wi-Fi 6 versus Wi-Fi 5. The best data wins. And as a reminder, I'm Kelsey Rizzuto, the marketing specialist here at 7Signal. So we'll go ahead and get started. A couple of announcements before we begin. For those of you who have recently joined us, these will all sound familiar, so just bear with me here. We do partner with CWNP for all of our webinars. So if you're pursuing a certification, just drop us a message and we can send over a PDF certificate to you per request. We also send out a 7Signal newsletter every other Wednesday. So if you're not currently receiving that and would like to, we'll go ahead and drop a registration link in the chat here as well, so you can receive that information every other Wednesday. With those newsletters, we love to send out articles, tips and tricks, and also survey questions just to gauge how our community of Wi-Fi engineers is doing, especially with work from home. So this is an example question that we have in those newsletters here to the right. We also host a product tour every single Friday at 12 noon Eastern. So we'll go ahead and drop a link to register as well. If you haven't recently joined us for a product tour, highly suggest doing so. There's a lot of exciting updates with Mobileye, Sapphire Eye, especially going into the new year. So if you'd like to, we will drop that there and you can go ahead and register. We also post all of our presentation slides to our Twitter account at 7Signal. So today's slides will be up there later this afternoon. If you don't have a Twitter account, you're not on there, no problem. All of you should be receiving a follow-up email sometime tomorrow with access to today's slides and a link to today's recording as well. And that recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. We post all of our archived webinars up there. And if you're able to, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We're going to start giving away a lot of merchandise for our YouTube subscribers. So stay tuned for more information there. We have a really exciting announcement here today. We are really happy to announce our first virtual user group of 2021. It will be on Wednesday, February 17th from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. Really excited about this. So we'll go ahead and drop the registration link in here as well. We've got a great lineup, and I believe, Keith, you'll be joining us on that day as well, too. Is that correct?
Definitely be there, of course.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have Keith on there that day. We'll also be diving into a little bit of the 7Signal product roadmap. Jim Vada will be joined to talk a little bit more about the IDC market report that we've been featured in, which we'll give a little bit more information on in just a second. But these virtual user groups are a great way to connect with industry experts, go over how to maximize and enhance your Wi-Fi performance initiatives for your organization. But especially with this IDC report that we're going to dive into, we're really going to dive into more of the business aspects of this, the ROI, the finance behind this. So really relevant and interesting to all different parts of your organization. So invite your peers, invite your colleagues. We'll go ahead and put this registration link out here, and you'll hear some more information about this in the coming weeks. And as I mentioned, really happy about this IDC white paper that we've recently been featured in, the business value of 7Signal for optimizing enterprise wireless connectivity. So we will go ahead and drop a link in the chat here to access this as well. This just was released this past week. So let us know what you think, and really excited to release this all to you finally. Another announcement for those of you who have joined us, this will sound familiar again, but we're really happy to have been featured in the Gartner 2020 Market Guide for digital experience monitoring as well. We've been recognized as a representative vendor for Mobileye, and another link for this will also be added in the chat here, so you can go ahead and access that if you wish to. So a lot of exciting things happening, a lot of links, registrations, so just keep an eye on that chat and stay tuned for more information. All right, going into a little history of 7Signal, we were established in 2007 in Helsinki, Finland, and we're now headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. We're really proud of the 1 billion data points that we're analyzing daily, in addition to the 5 million devices that we're monitoring daily. We have over 200 customers, over 30 partners, and 14 patents, which means that the technology you see from 7Signal, you're only going to see from 7Signal. Additionally, we are certified in over 40 countries and are GDPR compliant. So we take data and privacy very, very seriously for all of our users across the globe. And as I said, we're the leader in wireless experience monitoring, and we're here because the digital experience matters. And typically when you have a negative digital experience, it's because it bubbles up to one of these top 7 Wi-Fi problems, such as congestion, co-channel interference, roaming issues, coverage loss, and more. And how we're able to detect those top 7 Wi-Fi problems that could be occurring is by running active and passive tests on the edge of the network, looking for things like throughput, packet loss, adapter and driver issues, latency and jitter, and more. So we're able to provide full visibility into the end user experience through an outside-in approach, as I said, on the edge of the network. And we're also completely AP and device agnostic. So those great tools and technologies that you already have installed, we're incredibly complementary with that as well. So just to give you a little bit more insight what this means, your typical enterprise LAN infrastructure that you have on the right, as I said, you've got great tools and technologies giving you very useful feedback, useful data, like your Riverbed, your Cisco, Aruba, and more. But what we do is we pick up where they leave off, complementing that, especially with Mobileye, which gives you full visibility into the user experience on the actual device itself through the edge of the network. So this can be installed on any laptop, mobile phone. You got your Zebra scanners, workstation on wheels, and Mobileye can also be installed on any macOS, Linux, Android, or Windows device as well. And to complement this, we also have Sapphire Eye, which are our hardware-enabled software-enabled hardware sensors, for service-level quality and RF visibility. So through this, you're really able to get a full scope as to what is occurring in your wireless network environment. Additionally, that enterprise LAN infrastructure you had in the office might not be as useful or relevant now with a lot of us working from home. So what Mobileye can do is give you full visibility into your home networks as well for remote users, which is really important and crucial, especially in today's remote workforce reality. As I've said many times, work from home is here to stay, even moving into 2021. There will be a couple days a week where we may be in the office, a couple days at home, but regardless of that, when you're at home, it's not just convenient to have a good Wi-Fi connection while you're working. It's still mission critical. So through Mobileye, through this, we're able to give you that visibility and the reliability you need to stay connected. All right, thanks for letting me run through all of that. We're going to go into some trivia questions that Keith provided us to kick off today's presentation. So let's go and see how you guys do with this first question here. All right, Keith and Jim, can you see this question up here?
Yep.
All righty then. How many 160 megahertz channels are available in the US in 5 gigahertz? I see a lot of you dropping your answers in. Give you a couple more seconds. And let's share these results. All right, Keith, how did we do with this first question?
Well, we'll get to an answers. Let's do all the questions, and I've got all the answers to share. So.
All right, there we go. So stay tuned for more. We'll go ahead and hide this and add our second question here. All righty, can you guys see this second one?
Yes.
Okay. Our next one is, how many spatial streams do most Wi-Fi client devices support? Alrighty then, I see a lot of you dropping in your answers now. I'll give you a few more seconds. And we'll go ahead and close this second question. Our third question here. What percentage of Wi-Fi frames are smaller than 256 bytes?
That's a good one.
Alrighty then. Go ahead and close this poll. And our final question before we jump into Keith's presentation today is here. Let's see how you all do with this one. What percentage of RF airtime is used to carry data payload that becomes payload on Ethernet frames?
Another good one, Keith.
All right.
Kelsey, can you show the answers that the
Yes.
attendees did?
Let's go ahead and close this one. All right, are you able to see these answers?
Yep. Yeah, this is the last one, the airtime question.
Awesome. Alrighty then, well, thank you to all of you for participating. We're gonna go ahead and close out these polls. And I know Keith will dive into a little bit more of the answers behind these questions in just a moment. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch controls over to Keith here, and I will let Jim give him a little introduction as he gets set up here.
Yeah, happy to. So we're really excited to have Keith Parsons with us again. Keith is a world-renowned wireless engineer, trainer, podcaster. I could go on, but he's already got his slides up and ready to go. But I will say, follow him on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. And Keith, what's your count of total networking certifications now? Is it over 80?
94.
94.
I got 9
I have
in
to
2020.
update
So
my notes.
only 6 more to hit my goal of 100. In fact, I just got the last one on Monday. So my wife thinks it's a disease.
Well, there are worse.
I guess
vices
you have to have a hobby.
I suppose.
Certifications isn't too bad.
Agreed.
Well, should we get started?
Yeah, let's jump in. Thanks, Keith.
Okay. This title, Wi-Fi 6 versus Wi-Fi 5 Grudge Match, is kind of Kelsey's idea because it's just marketing. Let's go through and see how much is actually marketing or reality. We also find the same situation when people say, well, is 5G going to fight against Wi-Fi? And they don't fight. They're not one or the other. They just have different capabilities, and let's look at what they are, and then you make your own decisions. So first up, let me get my mouse where it makes changes. Me, hi, this is what I do. 94 certifications. Every time I do these, I want to have a bigger number there. So we did trivia questions. You answered the questions with what you thought you knew, which is fantastic. That you're thinking about how Wi-Fi works down at the nitty-gritty level. What's the channel widths we have, how much time is spent versus in airtime, the things that really matter. And the reason I use these trivia questions today is when we talk about Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 4, X, AC, and whatever you want to call them, how they work and the new features are highly dependent on the actual protocol itself, how the protocol works. So we get some marketing hype like we can go to, in fact, we'll show a slide, 9.6 gigabits on AC, sorry, on AX. Yeah, that's not even possible. It's theoretically possible, but it's not possible in the real world. So the marketing hype and reality, that's where we need to look at these. Now, that doesn't mean that one can't be better than another, even without the marketing hype. So I'm not trying to go against marketing. I'm just saying, if you read a number that just sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So let's look at the trivia question. First question was, how many 160 megahertz channels? I've got a chart up on the screen. And if you look way on the right side, the answer is going to be either 3 if you count current. But the FCC just announced a new Uni 4. I don't know if it's legal to do it yet, nor do I even know if, I don't even think any vendor has an AP that has support for that last channel yet. They're going to have to go and get recertified. So, but it's coming. So right now the answer is 3. In the future, in the US at least, it could be 4. Internationally, yeah, they're still kind of stuck with 3. Now, the reason I asked this question specifically for Wi-Fi 6 is it added 160 megahertz channel. Yay! And that's where you get all these really, really huge numbers. But we only have 3 of them. So the chances of having an enterprise with only 3 channels and not having co-channel interference is near 0. So the chances that you would actually use a 160 in enterprise, also near 0. You might not even use an 80, let alone a 40. I was just working with a hospital the other day, and they've been trying to push 40s, and they have to go back to 20s, and their complaint was, it's going to slow us down by half. And as we'll see, it actually doesn't slow you down by half. It's all about the airtime. So we only have 3 160 meg channels, which means we're probably not going to use them, even if it's available. Next question up, how many spatial streams? Well, depending on the clients, they're mostly ones. Today's new clients are almost all 2s, handheld devices, iPads, laptops. There are a couple of 3s. You kind of have to look hard to find them. MacBooks are one that have 3s, but for the majority, they're going to be 1 or 2. Again, for Wi-Fi 6, some of the big benefits are you can go to 8 spatial streams and you get fantastic numbers, except for our clients don't actually go to 8 spatial streams. So why are we even looking at those fantastic numbers? We should be looking down at the 1 and 2 range, because that's what we're going to get. Not to mention, multipath is required for spatial streams. You must have multipath or you don't get spatial streams. But just because you have multipath also doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a spatial stream. Multipath is required, but doesn't guarantee a spatial stream. So even if your device can do more spatial streams, you might not get it. I have a laptop here that I'm working on that supports 3 spatial streams. My AP supports 4 spatial streams, and right now I'm getting 2. Between me and my access point, and it's only probably 3 meters away, I don't have enough multipath to support that 3rd spatial stream. So just because you have multipath doesn't mean you're going to get the spatial stream. Just because you support spatial streams also doesn't mean you're going to get them in the real world. So let's design and think about and compare 1 and 2 spatial streams in our discussion about Wi-Fi 6 versus Wi-Fi 5. Now this one is a little shocking, and credit goes to Chuck Lukaczewski over at Aruba. They ran some tests. So you can disagree with the results, but you can run your tests yourself. This is at Aruba facility, and they were running and wanted to get the answer to how many frames that go over Wi-Fi are how big, because Wi-Fi is a terribly inefficient protocol, and if we can get bigger and bigger frames as payload, we can improve our efficiency. So that's the goal. Let's find out. So what they did is they sat for a day and collected all the data in their headquarters, came back and charted it out. And what we see here is 80% of all of the frames that were transmitted over wireless were less than 256 bytes, not kilobytes, bytes. These are teeny little frames happening all the time. And Wi-Fi is very inefficient, so it's got a lot of overhead for a little teeny piece of payload. Now, part of this is a lot of our transactions in the real world are done over TCP, and TCP has an ACK, and a TCP ACK is 90 bytes. So every single frame is going to have a TCP ACK coming back. So that's one of the reasons we have so many. If you look at the graphic on the left, all those little teeny ones on the far left, those are just TCP ACKs. They still have to go over the wireless medium. They still have to wait for a time to transmit. They still have to use up a slot time, countdown, all of the game that we play to get a Wi-Fi transmission on the air. Still have to do it even for a little itty bitty one. And you know what? We can't aggregate them. So yes, we're going to have a whole lot of very small frames on our network. You can do the same exercise. You can sit and collect data on your network and find out what are your averages. From this average, it was 80%. I've seen as low as 60. Getting past 50 would be really difficult given the fact that the way the TCP works. Okay, and Jim, you might even have a good answer for this. Can you get this number directly off of Mobileye or off of Sapphire?
You can get close, yeah. With Sapphire, you can certainly see the size of the frames going back and forth over the Wi-Fi,
and they're pretty small, right?
Normally, they're mostly very, very small. I was curious.
We would like them though to be big, so that's why we have aggregation. And the last question: what % of airtime is used for payload? Now we have Germund online, and Germund has a great calculator. You should go and find his calculator. We'll put a link to it in the show notes later. You can do these numbers yourself, both for Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 5. Germund's calculator is perfect for comparing those two. But the only thing that's going to be converted from a payload in Wi-Fi to a payload on an Ethernet frame in this picture is the blue. When you're using Germund's calculator, it happens to be the green. But that's just the way his calculator works. In this case, when we change the data rate from 300 megabits to 86 megabits, all we did was made it go slower. So the one on the top is 86 meg data rate, the one on the bottom is 300 meg data rate. It's a very small percentage of the actual airtime. Now we did a previous webinar with 7 Signal specifically about how a single frame is transmitted, and there's a lot more detail. You can go back and look at that webinar. But across the board, if we go from a 40 to a 20 megahertz channel, the only thing that changes in this graphic is the blue. It gets half as big. But the overall piece stays the same. Wi-Fi is a terribly inefficient protocol. It's free, chips are cheap, and so we use Wi-Fi all the time. But it's not a really good steward of the spectrum that we have to deal with. And so as we talk about things like, oh, go to 160 meg channels, faster QAM, all those things, just keep in mind, the back of your head, the only piece we're changing is this blue little chunk. So it's down under 10%. Some ways you can set up your configuration, your data rate speed, whether or not your MBR is faster. You can push this up to 10, maybe 20% if you're pushing really hard. But it's a very inefficient protocol. So with all those things set from the trivia questions, how do you do? Did you get the answers correct? Did it make you think? Okay. Remember, blue is the only part that's the payload of the Ethernet. This is also why people are all excited about, we need 10 gig, multi-gig, 5 gig, 2.5 gig to our APs. Yeah, if you have a lot of blue, but the blue is the only part that's going to be changed from wireless to wired. Okay, non-labeled slide because it's pretty obvious what it is. 2003, Wi-Fi 3. We don't actually call it Wi-Fi 3, it was G. We had 54 meg. 2009, by the way, this is a weird piece of trivia. 2009, September 11th, 802.11 was ratified. I'm glad they picked that day or I would have never remembered it. But it's September 11, 2009, and we got all the way up to 600 meg, but it's really closer to 300 meg because not everyone has 4 spatial stream clients to pull that off. And then Wi-Fi 5, 2015, about 5 years ago, we started to get into AC, and it has 3.5 gig. Now, I wish I could ask you all with a raise of hands, how many of you seen 3.5 gig on your network? Yeah, nobody. Jim, have you seen 3.5 gig on any network?
Never, not once.
Not
Ever.
once. I mean, if you can push above a gig through the air, you're doing really, really good.
Yeah, and
1.3 gig is about the most I've seen anywhere. And that wasn't net coming out of the Ethernet. That was just using up airtime. And so here we have Wi-Fi 6 coming out, and I put 2021 on here because it's still not ratified. Now they're testing, they're shipping, and everyone's using it, but the protocol itself still a little behind on the ratification. But they say we can get to 9.6 gig, just like the previous ones. Well, actually, G was pretty close. We could get about 20, 22 meg out of the 54, almost 50%. Of the 300 meg over the Ethernet, we could push a couple hundred, 150 to 170. In Wi-Fi 5, in AC, we can get consistently 500-600 meg. So I'm guessing if we keep that ratio, Wi-Fi 6 may be able to clear the 1 gig boundary. I still don't believe it. So they renamed these. Wi-Fi 6 is AX, Wi-Fi 5 is AC, Wi-Fi 4. They're actually not supposed to go back and call Wi-Fi 4. It's N. If you continued, then you could say, well, G would be Wi-Fi 3 and B would be Wi-Fi 2, but the Wi-Fi Alliance never actually codified what those are. We just talked about these last ones. So what did we get new in AX or Wi-Fi 6? Well, we can support up to 8x8 MIMO. Yes, not just regular MIMO, but multi-user MIMO, both uplink and downlink. These are improvements on both N and AC added multi-user MIMO, but it was only downlink. Now we have uplink. These are good things if the client can support them. One, spatial streams, we already had a question. We don't have clients that support that many spatial streams. Multi-user MIMO, we're starting to get clients that are AX capable that can do multi-user MIMO. In doing download and upload tests, this works sometimes. It's not a guarantee. Depending on which set of hardware you have on both sides, you may or may not get these to work properly. OFDMA, both uplink and downlink. OFDMA is going to make us more efficient. It doesn't make us more faster. It just makes us more efficient. Now, Devin Aiken has a statement he makes, and I love it, by the way, so I'm gonna copy him right here. In multi-user MIMO, if, and who cares? If you have multiple devices, if those devices are in the spatially diverse location, if they have a frame to send at the exact same time down to the millionth of a second, if those frames are the same size, and if those frames are using the same MCS, then we can use multi-user MIMO. So who cares? The chances of if in lining up are pretty small. So some of these features that came in AC that are now in AX that are better, we still are yet to see them on a normal basis being used and giving us back that efficiency we're after. I know Germund and many others who are on here, we did a WLPC deep dive specifically on how to make and capture OFDMA frames, and we had a difficult time making it happen. I've challenged many vendors saying, hey, show me that you can make OFDMA work every time with any piece of client device that's AC capable, AX capable. Yeah, no one's set up yet. Now, I've personally seen OFDMA work. I've made it work. It's just not mainstream all the time. Uplink resource scheduling, another one of the features. Long symbol, 1024 QAM. Now we know when we go to higher QAMs, we need more and more SNR to pull that off. I've seen 1024 QAM actually work on my own devices against my own APs. But it's also, you gotta be really close and really high power. So all of these features that are added in AX do work. Okay, I haven't hit the last one yet, we'll see. More spatial streams is good, except for our clients don't have them. And the last one is BSS color. And Jim, I'll have you kick in here. You wrote a nice blog article, and maybe Kelsey can add a link to that in the show notes. What's your take on BSS coloring being something that's mainstream right now?
It has a very, very small marginal impact right now. So the way we see it actually having a real world effect now is APs support BSS color. A lot of clients support dual nav, and then they can use that to distinguish between overlapping transmissions from other APs and their clients and their own BSS's transmissions, which can come into play in OFDMA scheduling. So there's a couple of ifs
Yes,
there.
just
They
some
really
more of
get
those ifs all lined up in a row. Now, I don't mean to slam on AX. It's got all sorts of cool features. And from a marketing standpoint, these are cool to say and talk about them and research them. And by the way, definitely read Jim's article there, his post on BSS coloring. It'll help you get a little better understanding of what all the necessary parts are. So just because AX is there, and some parts do and some parts don't work, we still have the client side. In order for AX to work properly and give you efficiencies, we need to have AX clients. Now, my iPhone 12's AX. I've got what is this? S10 on my desk. It's X. I can test it and do it, and there's more and more AX clients coming every day. The question is, at what point in your enterprise will you have enough AX clients to make a difference? Let's look at some answers. This is an old MCS chart. It was for N and AC. The N is the HT column on the left, the yellow one. The kind of blue one on the left is for VHT or for AC. And then we had the new modulation schemes. You know, the new 8 and 9 that were added in AC, whereas N just continued to count higher. We just went from up to 7 and then 8 to 15 and then 16 to 23. Now, there are MCS charts, and you can go online and find lots of them that are huge and big. I've truncated mine down just to 3 because I rarely have anything that's more than 3 spatial streams. This chart actually is bigger, but this is the one I carry around with me. And it's been fantastic. The problem with this is we do now have installs with AX. We have clients that can do AX, and so now we can see other data rates. Now, part of the problem of going to a new chart is we have to save space to make it still readable. So I had to get rid of the minimum SNR and the RSSI, but I was able to incorporate and still fit on one page AX into the equation. So you can see we still have 1, 2, 3 spatial streams. We now added MCSs up to 11. The N still repeats, the AC still only goes to 9, but we get to 11 when we added the new 1024 QAM for AX. Additionally, we added wider channels, so we needed to have a 160 out there as well. And so now we have a lot more choices to choose from. And the reason I did this, I was in the middle of a class with Peter McKenzie, and part of what we were doing was testing things, and I had an AX client and AX AP, and we were testing things. I kept getting data rates that weren't on the chart, and he goes, you're at the wrong chart. So built this new chart. By the way, just kudos on this one. Over 25,000 people have downloaded this chart just in the last couple of weeks. So I guess it's kind of a good chart. Well, at least people want to have it. It did lose some information, but if you do still want to find MCS and you run the AX clients, you need to have this extra detail. Okay, let's get into some raw data. A couple months ago, Fernay Munoz and I went out to a football field and we did some testing. We wanted to test and compare a variety of things, high power versus low power, Wi-Fi 5 versus Wi-Fi 6, 4 spatial streams versus 8 spatial streams. And in order to do that, we tested 4 different APs. 2 MISTs, they were MIST 41s, they were identical. And the only difference was the second one had higher power, 10 dB higher power. The next test was between Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6. And that was the test between the middle 2 here, the 41 high and the 43. It was also high. So they were both set to the same transmit power. The only difference was the 43 is running AX. And then the last 2 comparison is a MIST 43, 4 spatial stream AX versus a Cambium, which was an 8 spatial stream AX. So again, this is a over distance. We went from, so each of the, you can see at the bottom, we went from 10, 20, 50, 75, and 100 meters out on a football field. Yes, we used meters, even though it was a football field, we had to calculate the difference, but we want to be consistent. So this shows as you were close, everyone was faster, the dark blue line. So when you were only at 10 meters, yeah, everyone's faster, but it's substantially faster on the 8 spatial stream than even the 4 spatial stream. The AX was faster than the AC, and the high power was faster than the low power. As we get further out, those differences got less pronounced. In the end, though, the 8 spatial stream across the board was faster than the 4 spatial stream. The AX was faster than the AC. The high speed was about, high transmit power on the high 41 was at distance about the same. So comparing, now this was just a snapshot, 4 different things: low power, high power, Wi-Fi 5, same power, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, and then same Wi-Fi 6, different spatial streams between the last 2. So what we see is more spatial streams, good. Now again, this was an addition, and you're going to see in a minute, of the actual clients we tested with. The clients, we had AX client, 2 spatial stream client, 3 spatial stream client, and a 1 spatial stream client. So we could test those as well. And these numbers are an aggregate of all of those clients together. Just comparing the MIST 43 against the Cambium. This was just, I wanted to highlight for this webinar, just those 2 numbers, 4 spatial streams versus 8 spatial streams. Across the board, the additional spatial streams on the AP only, again, the data that we collected from the clients was the aggregate of a whole bunch of different spatial streams. But just the AP alone, that additional spatial stream had an edge. Not a huge one, not substantial, but a little bit more. Now, part of this could be, and we need to run some more tests to prove it, is we were doing a test in a football field and there was a big wall, not really a wall, but all of the bleachers had a whole lot of metal sitting on them, and we could have had a lot more multipath, and those extra spatial streams could have cleaned that up. So we'll need to test this differently. For NAPENS, I'm doing it out, the same test, but out in the Utah Salt Flats with no multipath to see what the differences are. Now, let's look at the clients. The dark blue client is a ThinkPad, a really old ThinkPad, but it had a brand new Intel AX chipset in it. 2 spatial stream, but it was able to outperform all the others. I rarely see anything outperforming my MacBook Pro. Now, this is an older MacBook Pro. It actually was a really old MacBook Pro, but it had 3 spatial streams, but its N wasn't enough to make it better than the iPad, which had AC. The iPad was 2 spatial streams, and across the board, the iPad outperformed. You can see at distance, they all did pretty good, but AX outperformed AC at every single level. Conclusions. AX is better than AC. Duh. Of course it is. Now, I don't know how much of this is the AX things we talked about in all of the marketing literature. We looked at the PCAPs of these tests, and no one ever hit 1024 QAM. So, yeah, we didn't use that one. The spatial streams, the AX that was AX chipset was a 2 spatial stream. The AP was an 8 that did the best, and the AX outperformed everything else from the client standpoint. Okay, so maybe it's the chipset's faster, but we also didn't see any OFDMA. It never triggered the OFDMA. So this was just, we got a newer chipset, and newer chipsets always outperform older chipsets. For the last 20 years, every time a new chipset comes out, I give the exact same recommendations to my customers. Say, should we move? And I'm like, well, it will be better. If you're gonna buy anything today, buy the newest. Duh, because it's got newer, faster, better chipsets that have fixed all the problems in the previous generations. So I would expect every AX chip to be better than every AC chip. But that's not the only question. Should you buy today? And of course, it depends. A little shout out to Sam Clements for his little TM there. Well, what does it depend on? if I was going to buy today, I would buy AX. I've had some customers who just said flat out, we will only buy AX from now on. Good, I wholeheartedly support that. But the question is, do you even need to buy it all? So if you have Wi-Fi 4, 807N, and it's meeting your requirements, why do you need to upgrade? Literally, is it meeting your requirements? So what you need to do is first know, what are my requirements? And a lot of people, in fact, most of my customers I meet with don't actually know their own requirements. So one, if it's meeting your requirements, why do I need to upgrade? Now, it could be a political thing, a financial thing. We're on a 7-year cycle and we're already, we're late. We have budget we need to spend. Great, buy AX. But if you're an N, you might have some reasons why you're not meeting your current requirements. Thus, if you're going to buy new, buy AX, of course. What if you're Wi-Fi 5 today? You have Wi-Fi 5 installs, 807 AC. It's been around for 5 years or longer. You may be at the point where you're like, well, do I need to upgrade that? Well, it goes back to the exact same question. Is your Wi-Fi 5 today meeting all of your requirements? If it is, you have no legitimate reason to move to 6. The improvements in AX, though we have documented proof and there's all sorts of marketing reasons to go, if it's meeting your requirements, why do you need to move? So again, if you are going to change, obviously go to Wi-Fi 6. No reason to buy older infrastructure. But you might not need to go right away if you're meeting requirements. I have a customer, a hotel chain that's still running 807G. ABG devices, 12, 14 years old. It's meeting their requirements. They're like, should we upgrade? And I'm like, well, does it meet your requirements? Yeah. They're able to deliver Netflix to all the people in their buildings all at the same time. That they really needed to do is update their ISP big internet pipe, and it still works. So when your boss says, are we going to move to 6? The answer is, yeah, we're going to move to 6. The real question is when. When do we need to move? And when you need to move is when you have enough requirements. I haven't seen a requirement that requires using 6 over 5. So if you can meet today's requirements with 5, you don't need to move. So the big conclusion is AX is definitely better than AC. I haven't seen widespread adoption of clients or any of the features that we are so touted. 8 spatial streams, we're not going to have it. OFDMA, it may help on some efficiency. It also has its own if. You need to have a lot of clients that need to transmit at the exact same time in order for that to even trigger. 1024 QAM can work if you're close enough. BSS coloring, yeah, a slight little bit, but nothing that's overwhelming enough to say, I need to dump my Wi-Fi 5 and go out and buy Wi-Fi 6 today. That's my conclusion. Questions?
All right, thanks, Keith. So one thought I had while you were, we were discussing those different performance numbers, the 8 spatial streams gives the AP on the receive side better capabilities to use MRC to combine all signals from those different spatial streams and result in better SNR, and also a better opportunity for transmit beamforming in a single user mode to that client, maybe at distance, to provide it a higher signal strength at distance. Do you think those things played a role?
Oh, I'm sure they did. There was the only difference between those 2 APs. Actually, there's another difference. Though the MIST 43 had Wi-Fi 6 AX, so did the Cambium. The only difference was their spatial streams. And in order to get that kind of difference, and the biggest difference was to the AX client, but it was also bigger to all clients across the board. So those additional spatial streams, both on inbound and outbound, the transmit beamforming must have been working in order to get it. And we did both upload and download tests, and it was consistent across the board. So yeah, spatial streams help. There are 2 different types of AX APs. Some have an 8 by 8 radio, Some have two 4x4 radios that can sometimes be 8x8. And so depending on which brand you get, they use different chips, and there's different chips that have different capabilities.
Gotcha. Well, we have a lot of good questions from the audience. I'm going to dive into some of these. Evo asks, some people say network latency will be lower in Wi-Fi 6. Is that true?
Sounds like the same people who are pushing 5G. Yeah, lower latency. Perhaps. It's like that BSS coloring document you wrote up. There's ways to lower the latency if you think OFDMA is going to work, and the latency was induced because I had to wait my turn to talk next, and I get to talk at the same time as someone else. Yeah, it could happen. We're talking at the microsecond level. This is, yeah, I don't think your gaming machine's going to go, oh yeah, I dropped my ping times when no, it's not a ping time thing. Get a faster internet pipe if you want that. Or if you're a gamer, wire it, man.
Definitely wire it, especially if latency is really important. Another question here from Evo: will target wait time improve battery life of clients compared to Wi-Fi 5?
Yes, and who cares? I mean, Evo, do you work for a marketing department? The answer is, for every one of these new features that come with the next version of the protocol, they wouldn't have put them in if they didn't work. So target wait time has the ability to save a little bit of battery time. But if you look on your device, the actual amount of time you're spent receiving is a very low power draw. Transmitting is where you get the high power draw for the radio. But of the entire battery budget of power, Wi-Fi is nothing compared to your screen, the backlight, playing the game, keeping the CPU running. So yes, target wake time can save some battery life. On a laptop, it would be, you wouldn't even notice. On a phone, it might be a percent or two after an entire day. So yeah, it's not like you're going to save an old iPhone 4 from extinction because now we have target wake time. Not like an iPhone 4 has Wi-Fi 6, but anyway.
A couple of good questions from Yermund, who was participating, and we want to thank him for his Wi-Fi airtime calculator that's so useful. He says the same MCS index for legacy OFDM and HE OFDM, that's what Wi-Fi 6 adds, gives different data rates. Wi-Fi 6 have larger data rates for the same MCS. And so he says, has anyone tested whether a Wi-Fi 6 client can give a higher MCS rate at the same distance as a Wi-Fi 5 client? The difference in subcarrier spacing and data symbol time could give better MCS with the same SNR.
Yes, Germund, it's possible. I have tested it, a Wi-Fi 6 versus a Wi-Fi client to a Wi-Fi 6 AP at the same distance, and they fluctuate. I found, and if you're interested, Wi-Fi Nigel posted a blog post about taking his phone and rotating it just an inch at a time and up and down. I found more change in this angle than I did in the difference between a AX MCS and an AC MCS. So changing an MCS category is more than same category AC to AX. If that, I think that answered his question.
Yeah, and I think, I think you're right too. I think we've seen with Wi-Fi 5 and then Wi-Fi 6, even though we do need a lot of SNR for 256 QAM and now 1024 QAM, it does work surprisingly more often than you might expect it to work. So that might
sometimes totally unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sitting here, I can't get a 3-stream, but I can get a 1024 QAM. I go into another room, I get 3-stream and 1024 QAM, and I come back and I lose the 1024 QAM. So it's and the whole thing about Wi-Fi is whoever's transmitting, whether it be the AP or the client, they're making that decision frame by frame by frame on how they're going to modulate the data they want to send. So We don't have a lot of control over that. One of my pet peeves about some training classes and certifications exams, they get down into, oh yeah, what happens in the preamble right here? Who cares? We don't have any control over that. We don't even have any control. I can't even tell my client, I want you to stay at 256 QAM or better or drop. You don't have any control over that. It just does what it does because it's hard-coded into the firmware. So us knowing how the nitty-gritty works really doesn't matter because we can't change it. What we really can change are transmit power, co-channel interference, design issues, infrastructure issues, and those are the ones we can do. And with 7 Signal, we can also set baselines and come back and say, why is it not working as well as it used to work? What changed? And so those are the things we have control over. We don't have control over the chip level stuff.
Yeah, and those rate selection algorithms are all proprietary. You can read the thousands of pages of 802.11 standards and you still don't know what rate a client's going to select. So
I did a test once and took it to 3 different vendors and tested the same test inside their buildings. And what we wanted to find out, this was maybe 7, 8 years ago. What we wanted to find out was, this was right after Antenna Gate with iPhone. What angle is best for your phone? Both this way, and then we rotated it this way. So we had it on a turntable, and we had angles set, and we would run it through a pattern and do it. And what we found was, it didn't do the same thing every time. We not once out of probably 80 tests could we replicate one test to another test. And it was the same AP at the same distance with the same people in the building. Everything was the same. And as we rotated around, we never got the same algorithm. Now, it would downgrade from a fast to slow, but never at the same rate. Sometimes we were running a test and it would go 40 megahertz to 20. The next time we ran the test, it stayed at 40 and changed spatial streams. Nothing else changed. It's highly, highly dynamic.
it is. Absolutely.
And so I thought the reason we did it at multiple vendors, and the reason this isn't published is because none of the vendors wanted to publish it because it was so just crazy. But every vendor also had a different set of data. So the clients didn't match, but the vendors didn't match each other either. So there's rate algorithms on every transmitter.
And those can change with different code levels and firmware levels, and yeah. So Kelsey, maybe one more question, then we'll wrap up. So Keith, last question here from Bart, who says, what if I need to add APs into an existing 802.11n environment? Is it advised to combine with newer Wi-Fi 6 APs?
My personal answer to you there is move NAPs around and keep a building or a floor or a segment of your building all new. And so scavenge. I really don't like seeing mixed AP versions in a building, let alone total new technologies. So if you have N everywhere and you need to fill in some holes, say you needed to add 20 more, take a space that's 20 size and put only the AX in there, and then move those over to offset where you pulled them out. It's just easier. The other thing you're going to find, if you still have N code, you're starting to get to end of life on that code, and some controllers don't support it any longer. So it just should be a warning when you see a vendor say EOL or EOS end of support, it's time to upgrade. That's a much bigger reason than, oh, AX is so much better. It's I need current code to run, and sometimes they can't get it to run on the old stuff.
All right, thanks, Keith. Kelsey, you want to wrap it up?
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Keith, for joining us. We're really happy to have you back on for our very first webinar of 2021. I think we got a lot of great questions and a lot of great feedback from the audience today. So happy to have you. And finally, thank you to all of you for joining us and giving us 45 minutes out of your workday to really dive into this topic. So looking forward to the rest of our webinars coming in 2021, and I hope everyone else has a great rest of their day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Kelsey.